Hello everybody and welcome to another part of the tutorial how to make fire in the Blender game engine. Well, this part will be focused only on the animation of the texture, on how to actually move this texture on our plane. And for this part will be extremely important to realize how actually images works and what the red, green and blue channel actually stands for, because we will use most of our textures not as colors for showing something but as values. So when we have in our texture some color, write as RGB, so red, green and blue values, uh, the computer actually takes it as three numbers for X, Y and Z, for example, which is the same thing as U, V and W for the texture coordinates. We won't, we will not use the blue channel because our textures are only two-dimensional, so we will use only X, Y, U, V, R, G. It doesn't matter, it's always the same thing. So when I said, for example, the 1, 0, 5 and always 0 for blue, uh, I will get this orange value, but in the texture it will be orange, but for the computer it's these three numbers, and he can work with them another way as than the color itself. So if you get this idea, go to our file from the previous part. It's look different on me, but I didn't change anything. I just set a different layout. So I have my UV image editor 3D preview right here, so I will see what's happening with our material, and most of my screen is taken by the node editor itself. Well, uh, now I will start already in the node editor and add here the input geometry node and place the UV coordinates right into the color value for our output. I see that this isn't work as I expect because this plane isn't already UV unwrapped. So I go to edit mode, U and reset. I see it's wrong rotation by 90 degrees, and now you can see how this mapping actually work, because it's nothing more than just green and red colors. Here it's everything black because the coordinates for the image aren't taken from 0 to 1 but from -1 to 1, so the 0 is actually in the center, and every value below the 0 is black, because when I set the RGB, for example the red channel lower than 0, it should be black, and everything more than 1 is just plain red. So these colors or these vectors or coordinates are taken for the image. So when I have mapped it, UV unwrapped it like this. So for example, this 0, 0 value for red and green channel uh, tells the Blender that he should use the 0 and 0 coordinates on the image, which is actually the center. And here is -1, -1, it's this corner, and 1, 1 is the yellow one here. And uh, this is what I will use for animating the texture, because I will not change the texture or move with the texture, but I will change these colors every frame, and it will mean that, for example, this 0, 0 value will be still the same on the image, but I will move it on the coordinates. So for example, if I add more green color for this channel, for this vector, it will have same effect as move this up. So I will add more and more green to our image, and I want to add a different value every frame. So I will need something like animated texture or something which is actually animated inside the Blender game engine. And Blender already have this feature. So I will go to my animal texture. I showed how to make this texture in my previous tutorial for animated texture, so you should check it out, or just go in the description of this video and download this image or every texture which is used in this tutorial. And when you have it, just press N for the properties, scroll down for the game properties, and here you can check that this is animated texture. When you check it, from now on, Blender already know that this image won't be taken as one whole image, but it will divide it as many times as I set right here for both axes. For U and V, here is actually named X and Y, but as I said, it's the absolutely same thing. And after this division, every part will be different frame for the Blender game engine. For example, I can show you here. It will, if I set it divide X and Y by 4, it will divide this image 16 times and set every part to another frame. So when you have the whole image in this one part, it's actually very common to use this technique to make animated texture. For example, have 6 or 10 different fire image, place there in this pattern, and it will work as well. But this will change the whole image in some resolution every frame, and it will be hard for computing, for frame rate will drop, and it, it's not exactly what we want. And the image itself, uh, for example, fire 512 by 512, now it should be 2048 by 2048 just for low resolution fire. So even the memory will be taken. Well, we have just one image which is 8 by 8 pixels, so every frame will be changed only 1 pixel, which is really nice for the CPU computing. And the image 8 by 8 pixels takes pretty much none space on the hard disk, so the memory is saved as well. Well, we can set how many times per second we want uh, change the frame. So it's actually same frame rate as, for example, the game engine frame rate, but this value is actually independent from the game engine frame rate. So this is another how many times per second it will be changed. So when your frame rate in game will be I would say unstable, will change often. This speed should stay the same, but it's only should, not have to. So think about it as frame rate. So don't set too low values for smooth movement, but too high values are again a little bit more mm, heavy for computing, but anything like 36 should be high enough, but as well low enough for computing. And just set how many frames you actually want to use from this image. we divide it by 8 times in each axis, so we end up with 64 different frames. So I set this for 63. So from 0 to 63 is actually all 64 frames. And now Blender consider this image as animated, and I can use it anywhere in the node editor, in the material editor, and everywhere I will use it and go to the game engine, it will be animated. So when I go in the node editor and add this texture, which using this image, and plug the color to the color output, I should already see that the color is changing from black to white, and for the engine or for the Blender it means the values from 0 to 1. And well, it's not only one value. I can prove it by separating the RGB, that it's the three different values, but they are actually same because it's always the gray value, but the red channel changing from 0 to 1, green as well, and blue as well. So if I would use this output for modifying my UV coordinates, I would actually uh, end up with something that will move in in all directions. So when I want to have the control of it, and I want, for example, only the green value to be changed, so the uh, direction will be better controllable, I will use just only this green value to edit my UV mapping. But for the vector, I need to add again another vector. So I will convert vector math, for example, add, and I need the second vector. And one value itself isn't really a vector, so I need again combine this RGB to the image, but I will use only the green, and whatever is the input here, I always get 0, something, and 0, and this something will be always green, so the Y axis or the V axis, and it will be animated because this input is changed every frame. So already when I add it to this and go to game engine, I should see that the texture is already moving. Well, one thing uh, is missing here, that as I say that this image is from -1 to 1 and not from 0 to 1. So I need to multiply this value by 2 just with math node. I multiply this first value by 2, and now it sorry, now it should go from start to finish. Well, it's actually working pretty well, but it's not that visible because the values over the one are still the same for viewer. You can see more green than absolute green, but this works pretty well. And when I place any texture I want, for example my noise texture, and use this vector modified and animated as mapping for my texture, so it will be mapped as UV, but every frame the V value, the green value, will be more and more. I should see that this texture is moving, and it's pretty much all I want to do. I just want for my fire the texture moving upwards, So instead of multiplying by 2, I multiply it by -2, and it's already moving upward. And I want some distortion. And before I add the distortion, the good thing is to take these nodes and group them with Ctrl G, and this group, just hit tab and go out of the group. You can name it something like animation and Y, for example, that it will change the Y value. And if you save this file and input or link this file to your another blend, you can place it in any or material, and you have the animated green value always. So when you place it, for example, to the color, well, of course you see nothing because it's from 0 to -2, so you will see just black color. But for mapping as texture, you can set animated texture anywhere. Well, for the distortion itself, we will use the next texture we have. We will apply the normal map, and when we see the color, we will modify the uh, displaced UV map by this vector values. So for example, if this pixel has some UV coordinates, so some color for where it should be placed on the image, and we will modify it by some green from our NMY node, and we add some variations from this texture, so there will be some another green and a little bit of red from this picture. Well, as I said, we will use only red and green values. I will organize it a little better. So I will again separate the RGB and then combine them again, but only R and G, not blue values. So it will move only in X and Y direction. And to have some control on how strong this effect will be, I need to multiply it by another vector. And as we already know, the vector is color, so I can't use the math because I would get only one value, only one number, but I want to get vector, so I need color and mix RGB and multiply this with factor of 1 with some gray value. And gray value is actually any value from 0 to 1 for each channel the same. So when I would have this node again for red, green and blue, and input there only one value for all these three channels, I would get always the gray value which I can select. So when I am going towards 0, the effect is low, and to 1 I get higher and higher effect. I can, with this method, can go over the 1, which is impossible to set in here because the max values are always the 1. But with this method I can go to 2, 3, however how high I actually want. And this is actually the vector we want to add to our animated vector to our green changing value. Just duplicate the add vector again, and add this vector here. And now I can go to our texture and I should see that it's not only animated but distorted as well. And how much distortion is there? For example, 0 is only animation, and any higher value is di distortion. Well, and this could be some output. So I will place it to one reroute. I sorry, I just hit shift, and with shift I go in left click and drag over the lines, so I have only one input for all these values, and I make again the group from all this. Just Ctrl G, and it's good for me, and this will be like normal, which has the vector for how map this texture and value for how much influence it will have. Well, because it's pretty much all about animation, everything else will be how to make the colors and alpha values, and this part is already long enough. I will end it right here, and if you want continue, just go to next part, and I hope you already can use this effect for some of your project. And till the next part, bye.